But but okay. So, but like there is so much information for you to help you pick plants for each season. And as you go through the slides, you will understand how to do that. Texas Superstars, like this is the sister complementary program to Earthkind gardening. So Texas Superstars, like Texas is a huge place, 1,000 miles across, and there are 3 or 4 zones, like 6A to 9B. That means it's cold and it's hot and humid. So for a plant to be recognized as a Texas Superstar, it should do well in all these zones. That means like in some zones, it will be a perennial, some zones it may be annual, but it will still survive. And they have to be hardy. They have to tolerate. One of the main things here is our hot and dry summers, humidity and drought sometimes. So these plants have to survive through those harsh conditions. And they also have to be disease and insect resistant. So this is how they bred these plants. And bred maybe is a wrong word because they are already existing in nature. So they ran some trials in all this and picked these plants. So since it is a rigorous trial program, we really do not have that many Texas Superstar plants. So this is a booklet that you can go to Master Gardeners in Rosenberg and pick up if you want, but this is also available online. So it'll give you all information about the superstars. So I talked about this. Both the Earthkind and Texas Superstar programs will help you become a foolproof gardener. So how do we plan like color for 4 seasons? We have perennials which come back year after year. Either they will die back to the root and come back, or they will self-seed and then reappear the next year, or they will remain green. So these are the perennials. They will come back year after year. And these perennials, since they are there for a longer time, the flowering season may be shorter than the annuals. So annuals are the ones which bloom a lot in one season, but they may not stay for the next season. But there's a caveat. So our zone is like 9A or 9B, and some of these annuals are behaving like perennials. So you may be pleasantly surprised that even after winter, you may see these annuals come back. And like in July and August, almost everything is dead. The grass is brown and we hardly go out. But if you go out, if you venture into the garden in the heat of summer or dead of winter, like if you are from East Coast, like, September through April, it is dead. So for us, dead of winter is maybe December, January, February, December and January, maybe 2 bad months. So when you go out during these months, and if you see color, there's nothing more thrilling than that. So I will show you a few slides quickly on how to pick your plants on Earthkind website. And you can also go to Texas Superstar website. So Nancy is going to post those 2 links in the chat, and you can save them, take a photo or whatever, and save them so you will know how to plan your garden. So the best time to plan a garden is not in spring, because spring, like it's already late. You want color, you want everything to be in place by spring. So the best time to plan is late fall. Go through your garden and take a notebook and make notes and start writing like what you need, where you need it. So these websites will show you your specific location. Like we are in like Fort Bend County, and if you go to Woodlands, it's one zone colder. So you may want to take that into account. And for the season, spring, summer, winter, fall, and winter. And also the growth habit. Is the plant going to be tall, medium height, or short? So there is so much information there. All you need to do is just go through that website. So this is the Earthkind website, and I'll quickly walk you through how you can how you can plan your garden by finding the right plants for your location, for your specific location. So when you go to this is the website, aggihorticulture.tamu.edu, and you go to Earthkind Landscaping and go to Earthkind Plant Selector, and you can search by zip code or by region, or you can put more parameters. But remember, the more filters you put, the less results you will get. So start with a broad search and then start narrowing it down. So here we said region G, Southeast Texas, which is ours, and select plant habit use. And you can also select your exposure. Do you want to use your bed in full sun, partial sun, or shade? Most of us have shade, partial shade in the front yards where we have oak trees. So that's a very challenging area to do. And of course, you can also do flower color. But like I said, the more filters you put, the less you will get. So then once you put all your filters, then you generate the quick list. And for example, this is the list that we got, and we will take one plant as an example to walk you through. So you will get a long list, and we are picking up Turk's cap. So Turk's cap, this is the Turk's cap narrative. This is a perennial. This will come back year after year, and many times it does not die down. So you can see exposure, sun, partial sun, shade is perennial. Ground cover, I'm not very sure because it's tall. It can be trained into a small shrub, or it can be allowed to grow into natural, its natural tendency. So it has fruit characteristics, site responsive 3 to 8 feet, and width 2 to 6 feet. That means you have to give it a lot of space in your garden. So all these things will help you to plan. And then there is this Earthkind index 10. So there is 1 to 10. 10 means it's very hardy. It has high heat tolerance, low water use. All these are good things. But you have to keep in mind that 10 means it will be very difficult to get rid of it also, because it is happy anywhere you put it and it will stay there. So that's one example of how you can pick your plants. And this is the website for Texas Superstars. And here, when you go to the website, you can see texassuperstar.com. That is the website. You can see the annuals, perennials, trees, woody shrubs, specialty plants. So between these two websites, you have a lot of information and lot of ability to plan your garden. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and I will try to answer. Nancy or Boone or Ruben will let me know. So you can get all this information here. And I'll be talking about a lot of these plants in more detail. So these are the perennials, perennial. And so perennial plants are more like tropical. Since we are in zone, I would like to call it 8B and 9, because it is anywhere, sometimes we are getting more and more freeze. But these are the perennial plants will help you create the tropical look. And most of the times, all these do extremely well here. They stay for the year, they come back the next year, but you have to see what are the ideal growing conditions of these plants. So no matter what kind of garden you want, do you want a extremely colorful garden? Do you want a shade garden? Do you want a tropical look garden? Or, do you want to add more color as the year goes with annuals? Or you want to have backbone of your garden with perennials? So the most important thing is for you to make notes, plan your garden, and come back to these websites and then pick them. Okay, these are the plants that I would like to plant in the back of the bed. This is full sun, this is partial sun, or this is partial shade. I don't think we have many plants that will do very well in full shade, except maybe columbine and caricature plant. So use these websites. And apart from these websites, you also have the hotline, which you can always email or call us at Fort Bend Master Gardeners hotline if you have questions. So what are the seasons? Unlike East Coast, we have all seasons here. We have spring, summer, fall, and winter. And most of the time it is summer and a little bit of winter. That's it. Just when we think the spring is here, it's already hot. And I don't see much of fall, but winter is not really that bad unless we get a Uri kind of mega freeze. So we can plan and plant for all these seasons, and we will see like which plants are will work in each of the seasons. And when you go to the Texas Superstars website, each plant will tell you when it will bloom. So if it says it will bloom in spring, that means you have to plant it before, like in late fall or early winter. The ideal time would be fall and late fall. So even if it dies down a little bit, it will come back in spring. So if it says it blooms in summer, then you have to plant it in spring. So this is how you plan based on the blooming times. And as we go through this, I'll also give you some ideas on how to add more, how to fill your beds even when there is not much going on in the garden. And again, you have to look at the heights of the plants. So you need to make sure that the tall plants are in the back of the bed, so they will not dwarf the short plants. And the middle, the front and the middle, you should pick plants that are like lower. So for the front, you can also pick something like a ground cover. So based on the height of the plant, you can plan your beds. And watering and light needs. So most of the plants, it is helpful if you pick plants that have similar needs for watering and light. So if you plant a plant that needs part shade in full sun, and then plant something else that is required to be planted in full sun, one will do well, the other one will not do well. And if you plant a plant that requires very little water, like our Turk's cap, and something that requires a little more water, then you can't set up your sprinkler system same for both. So you need to keep that in mind. What are the light needs? Is it full sun, or part shade? And what is the watering requirements of the plants? So if we go through the seasons, spring is no brainer. Spring is when everything is starting to come up and bloom, and it's very easy to fill color in spring. But like I mentioned before, you need to plan ahead. So what you can do is, there are few things. If you are doing plants like saplings or starter plants from nurseries, you may want to plant them in fall so they will stay through spring. But if you want to do seeds, maybe you want to start them indoors, maybe in December, January, and then you can take them out in late February once our last freeze date is done. Then you can take them out and put them in the garden. So if you plan a little bit again, you can have more color throughout the year. So you can do with seeds, you can do with seedlings from starter plants from nurseries, or you can just, buy full size plants in spring. So all those are options. And now let us see what plants we can do in spring. So Larkspur is a beautiful, delicate plant. And this looks like delphinium, though it may not look as robust as delphinium, it's more delicate. And since I moved from East Coast, I tried growing some plants that would not do well here, but it took me a little while to find out that they will not do well. And it also took me a little while to find out which plants I can have similar excitement, happiness by using these plants. So larkspur is self-seeding. That means you have to plant larkspur in fall. It has to go through the winter dormancy, and it will come up in spring, and it will, once it is done blooming, it will drop the seeds, and then maybe even the birds may take the seeds all over, and you may find a surprise gift, larkspur, popping up in various places in your garden. And larkspur comes in a few colors like pink, purple, and blue, I think. So this is like about 2 feet, and it may need some staking because it's very delicate, and we do get these winds. This is one of my favorite plants, Laura bush petunia, and a tidal wave, and like silver and cherry petunia. So these guys, especially Laura bush petunia, it will, once you plant it in your garden, you will keep seeing it next year, the year after, the year after. That's my experience. Last 8 years since I've been a master gardener, I've been using a lot of superstar plants in my garden. And this is a plant which pops up throughout my garden. And I love the color. It's nice, deep magenta. It can have a trailing habit, so you can use it in containers, and you can also put it on the ground. You can also use it in hanging baskets. So, and the contrast of this silver and cherry petunia, that's fantastic. So this will look very nice in containers and in hanging baskets, and you can't go wrong with these petunias. Any questions so far? Nancy?
Sorry, Suma, I had myself muted. I think Boone was going to answer one. Will milkweed bloom year round?
Oh, okay.
Boone, did you want to answer it, or Suma?
I was just going to touch upon the many different species of Asclepias, but on that angle, Suma, if you want to expand upon that.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Again, milkweed is one thing that it will come back year after year. The common milkweed, not the exotic, like the more unusual species. I see it blooming on and off throughout the year, more in spring and fall. But depending on the migration, we are also told that we should cut back the milkweed based on the cycle of the migration. So Boone, you can go ahead and add the technical expertise.
Suma, I think he's doing it online in the chat.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay. Okay, so this new Gold Lantana, spring through fall, again, keep in mind, even if I say these plants are spring, many of the plants stay through fall. So they bloom from spring through fall, and like sometimes late fall, and if the winters are mild, they will stay in. So don't go by, okay, this is only for spring. This will be there for longer time. So new Gold Lantana is one of the things. Actually last year, means builders always use this extensively. They use some plants extensively. There is a reason for that, because these plants are very hardy. They add a splash of color. One of the rules for the communities and builders is that if you are driving by, you should be able to see the color from like a distance. So that makes it attractive for the curb appeal. So in the medians and in common areas and in the housing development, this plant is used extensively. And lantanas are also great pollinators. They attract bees and butterflies. So again, if you have a space where you want a nice spreading bush or even trailing, I will talk about the trailing lantana in a little while. So this is a great one. It is very colorful because its yellow is like very attractive, and it does extremely well. So in summer, late summer, for most of the plants, you may want to prune back a little bit so they will revive for fall. So Belinda's Dream is actually the first rose I planted in my garden. And this is Earthkind has Earthkind roses. And this is also a superstar. And you can never, ever go wrong with Belinda's Dream. So right now, whoever has Belinda's Dream in their house, the flowers in spring are really huge and multi-petal. They have a nice little fragrance. And it's actually doesn't need much work at all. You don't need to spray. You don't need to, do anything much to it. It'll keep giving you blooms after blooms. So in the spring, the leaves are brighter green, and in the fall, they are a little more dull green. And in summer, the blooms may cut back a little bit, but it will bloom throughout. It is a huge bush. I would say maybe 3 to 4 feet high and around 3 feet width. So keep that in mind if you are planting it. So one other thing that most of us, I did that mistake also, most of us do is when we first plant the plant is itsy bitsy, and we think, oh, okay, I can plant it here and I can plant the other plants around it, but then it grows. So it grows, and you need to keep that in mind, the future in mind. And you also need to keep the irrigation system in mind. As the plants grow, you need to adjust the height of the irrigation system, the sprinklers. And knockout roses are one of the most popular plantings in the community. Again, the builders use them extensively in common areas because they add this beautiful, attractive red to the areas. And they are like, they do very well without much fuss. And you can get the knockout roses in red, in blush pink, and in white. You can also get them in yellow, I think. So this year, this season, this spring, this has become a craze. Everybody was, or if you go to Facebook, everybody was posting about Vitex. So Vitex, it's very difficult for us to grow lilacs here. Lilacs have very nice fragrance, and they look similar to Vitex, but they don't grow well here. So this is our answer, the South's answer to lilac. And it is a very slow grower. And for some reason, it is quite expensive when you go to the nurseries. So if you get a small plant, you may have to wait for a long time, but it's worth it. And the color contrast of purple and green is so attractive. And it is actually stays evergreen most of the time. So it is a win-win plant. It's a small tree. So if you have an area where you want a small ornamental tree, this is your answer. So now coming to summer. Summer is our problem season in the sense that summer is hot, summer is humid, and summer also can sometimes bring drought. But you will be pleasantly surprised to see that we have a lot of options for summer also. So again, if you want summer blooms, you may want to plant it in spring. And if you want to do it from seeds, you may want to do it a little earlier because it takes time for the seeds to become seedlings and starter plants, and then you can put them in the ground. But I haven't talked about bulbs in this presentation, and Boone is a bulb expert. But I love bulbs, and bulbs are something that you can play with, and these will help add color. And when the bulbs are dying down, the other summer plants or spring plants may come up, hiding those bulbs. So in spring, we have daffodils. When you see in the later slides, you will see some. And in summer, we have tiger lilies, and we have crinum, all those things. So the foliage will remain green for a little while, but you can plan around those bulbs and plant around them. So when the bulb is done, you will still have plants around them. Any questions, guys?
Suma, some of the questions were technical, and Boone had said that it might be better to reach out to the hotline for answers.
Okay. So Angelonia is, again, a fantastic plant. It comes in 4 colors and also some bicolor, purple, pink, white, and double color. And this is, so we have snapdragons. So we have some plants that are, some flowers that are very popular in fall and early spring, like snapdragons, petunias, and violas, and all those things. So, but the snapdragons, even though they add a lot of color, they don't stay after like May. So this can take the place of the snapdragons. So that these are nice. They will add, if you plant them en masse, you can either plant them together, all the different colors, to create a nice palette of colors, or you can do just a splash of purple, a splash of pink. So pink and purple are a classic combination. And you can do the white Angelonias with a coleus, a dark color coleus. So you can create contrasts with these plants. So Angelonias are about 1.5 to 2 feet. And there are some varieties that are shorter also. So keep that in mind. And most of the time, if the winter again is not too harsh, they do come back. So they are a great plant to plant. Pentas are again one of a great summer plant. So butterfly deep pink pentas. One thing you may have noticed, or you might not have noticed. So the plant, there is a common varietal of the plant, and there is a specific variety that has made to the Texas Superstar classification. So all pentas are not Texas Superstars. So this one is butterfly deep pink. So if you are looking for Texas Superstars, you may want to keep that in mind. So Angelonia Serena series. So that's the one that's superstar. So same thing with pentas. So butterfly deep pink pentas. They are very sturdy and they add a lot of color. And they are about, they can be anywhere from 1 foot to 18 inches. And they are supposed to be annuals, and sometimes they do come back. So again, you can add a nice splash of color for the middle of the border, because these are not too short or not too tall. And again, in summer, late summer, in July, August, they may look a little sad. So try to give them a haircut and mulch them, and they will come back, bounce back in fall, and reward you with more flowers. So Cora vinca. So vincas, periwinkle, again, is a very common plant, but Cora series is the one that made it to Texas Superstar. So it comes in so many different colors, and vincas are so versatile. You can plant them in the containers. You can add color to the hanging baskets. You can put them in the front of the border. There are trailing, some of them have a trailing habit. So, and these are so hardy. I have still vincas that I planted 2 years back in my garden. They're still like coming back and doing well. So we cannot really go wrong with these plants. But the only thing that might happen is sometimes we want different plants. So for those, there are other plants. So this is again a very, very versatile plant, trailing purple lantana. So trailing purple lantana also is used by construction crews, builders quite a bit, because it is a great edge of the border plant. It trails and it blooms almost throughout the year. And it does come back year after year. And one other very, very nice thing about this lantana is in spring, the leaves are like normal green. And in fall, there is a fall color. Can you see this light burgundy of the leaves? So that creates more interest in the lantanas. Yeah, so interesting, darker leaves in fall. And salvias, every garden should have many varieties of salvias, especially if you are into edible gardening, if you have vegetable gardening, if you have fruits, you need to have plants that attract pollinators, the bees, the birds, and the butterflies. So these are the ones that carry pollen from plant to plant, and these are the plants that help the flowers become fruits. So we need to plant salvias, and salvias will come back year after year. And salvias are so many varieties, and so many heights, so much of interest. So you can create different interests with salvias. So this particular salvia is called Mystic Spires, and this is not a very tall plant. There are some salvias that are quite tall, and you may want to give them a little bit of support, which we will look at them in the next slides. So these are excellent for this light blue is very nice. And imagine, so plant salvias and you can plant the Cora vinca in the front, the pink. So that will be a nice contrast. Or you can maintain the blue on blue we will talk about some other blue flowers. So you can create interest with the structure of the leaves, the color of the flowers, and the whole plant itself. Some plants are very architectural. So you don't necessarily have to have flowers, but you can still create interest. So it also spreads year after year. What does that mean? That means you can actually share these plants with your friends. And I think most of us belong to either garden clubs or garden groups, and this is the best way to grow your garden, by sharing. So you can share all the excess plants and help other gardeners get the pollinators. So you can also combine them with pink Angelonias for the contrast. And globe amaranth, gomphrena, is one of my favorites. It is very heat and drought tolerant. This is a great plant for summer. Even if nothing else is blooming, this will bloom in your garden. So in peak summer, the leaves may look brown a little bit, and you can, you can do a little bit of pruning, little bit of haircut in late summer, and they will come back. And gomphrena is also easy to grow from seeds, and it will also spread, so you can also share it with your friends. So there are 3 colors. One is magenta, and one is pink. The other one is white. So you can create these colors of this nice ball-like flowers in your garden. So fall, I'm not sure, I believe we have a fall here, fall season, because summer, then it becomes cooler eventually. But traditionally, fall is September through December, or we can say maybe here October, November. And for the fall color, we need to plan in summer. So summer, again, either throw some seeds in your garden beds or grow them in nursery pots and start them as starters, or you can buy them in fall from the nurseries. So you can plan in summer for fall blooms, and most of the plants we talked about so far may perk up also in fall with midsummer pruning. So you don't necessarily have to have new plants, but you can create more interest with new plants also. And whenever you're pruning, again, remember, we grow gardens by sharing. So whenever you're pruning, most of the plants, several plants grow with, you can propagate with cuttings. So when you're pruning your plants, share the cuttings with your friends, start them, and you can exchange what you don't have with the other person who has some other plants. So this is a very unusual color for a bloom. It is that light baby blue. And I have seen this plant in full sun. I have seen this plant in morning sun and afternoon shade. And I've seen this plant in partial shade. And this seems to do well in all. The only problem with Plumbago is it may become straggly, means it may become long and thin. So you may want to start pruning when you see that. And the more you prune, the more bushy it will become. So keep that in mind. And of course, you can do Plumbago, and you can intersperse that with red salvias. So you cannot go wrong with that combination. Any questions so far?
Suma, Boone has been answering them in the chat.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is one very interesting plant. So this can be trained into a small tree, or it can be left as a shrub. So this is the Duranta. And in spring, not spring, like early summer, it starts having this purple blooms. And these are called racemes in the sense that they're long flower heads with tiny flowers. But since they are clustered, you will get that color impact. And it's not just that. In fall, this plant starts to generate these golden yellow berries. So all these flowers become berries, and it creates such a nice splash of color and interest in the garden. And this is something that you may want to have in the back of the garden, because it has a weeping habit. So it's very pretty to look at. So Esperanza looks like a tropical plant. And again, like we talked about Golden Lantana, this also is the color of this plant is so attractive. So Esperanza is the gold star Esperanza with a deeper color, deeper yellow. And you can again keep this into a small bush, shrub, or you can train it into a tree. And a very interesting thing that you can do with Esperanza is you can also make this a hedge. Of course, this is not evergreen. It will die down. It will come back. Most of the times, 90% of the times it comes back. And so you need to keep that in mind. If you want an evergreen hedge, this is not yours. But instead of doing the boxwoods and things like that, the normal, common things, you can do this to add interest. If you have really a big yard, you can do a hedge of this because you can play with your ground. And this is, again, one of my favorites, Camellia. It's also called hummingbird bush, and I have pictures to prove it. Like one year, I did an experiment without hanging the nectars for the hummingbirds. I wanted to see which plants actually attract hummingbirds to my garden. So this is one of those. The flowers are tubular, they are long, so they have the nectar in those long necks, and that's what hummingbirds love. So I have seen hummingbirds hover on this plant. And the plant is so beautiful. It can be a big shrub. So again, keep that in mind for your location, for your area when you're planning your garden. So this has this bright green in spring and this like rust, it's not a deep red, but the contrast is fantastic. And just like the other plant we just talked about, Duranta, this has also a fall interest. In fall, the flowers remain red, but the leaves become burgundy, like that rust color. So this is beautiful in fall and beautiful in summer and spring. So this is again a great pollinator. Bees and butterflies love it. And if you have a vegetable garden, you may want to plant it around it, close to it, somewhere near it. So Thryallis, or shower of gold. This has behaved as evergreen in most of the years. And last year it did die in Uri, but it came back. And again, it starts blooming late, like midsummer, and it continues to bloom till late fall, early winter. So again, the flowers are tiny and yellow, and this can become a nice shrub. And also you can, if you have the patience, you can train it as a tree. But this is a great plant to have if you have that space in your garden where you want to have a nice round shrub with a lot of fall colors. So one thing you also have to keep in mind is one other advantage or one other extra incentive is most of these plants, most of these flowers look great in flower arrangements. So you can have beauty in the garden, you can bring beauty inside your house. They are so versatile. So winter. And most of the times people say, oh, I don't know what to do in winter. I think the gardening season is over. I don't think I can do anything much in winter, except if you're doing winter vegetables like the brassica, like the cauliflowers and cabbages and Brussels sprouts and all those things. But even without those vegetables, you can add color in your winter garden. So some of these plants that now I'm going to talk about are not part of Texas Superstar program. And these are tried and true in my garden. And I think like, even though they're not superstar, they are very, very southern plants. And it is a great thing to have them in our garden. So garden is definitely not dead in winter and there are options. So this, I took a picture of this in some neighborhood. This was in November or December, and look at that. So plants around it seem like brown, but the pansies are adding a splash of color. So fall zinnias, these are Texas Superstar plants. And Nancy here has specialized in growing a lot of zinnias with seeds. The Profusion series are very successful, and you can actually do the zinnias. You can plant the zinnias in summer, and it may get a little brown in late summer, but you can prune it back, and in fall they'll revive and they will stay through fall, and sometimes they'll come back in spring. So these are great to have in your garden, and they're short. So the zinnias are an excellent plant for the front of the border. So you can add color, the reds and rusts and yellows. So you can add color with these Profusion zinnias. If you want, you can buy in nursery stock. You will start seeing them. You can see them in spring, but you'll also start seeing them in fall. So you can buy the nursery stock, or you can start your own plants by a seed in January, February, okay? And this is an interesting plant. This is a specimen plant in the sense that it needs its own space. You want to leave it alone to make it very special. So possum holly. This has, again, when you think that you don't have any color, this provides that color with the winter berries, with the red berries. It's like a living Christmas tree. And the berries linger through winter. It likes full sun, but it also, I have seen it also survive in partial shade. It's a nice specimen tree, and it grows to about 12 feet. So this is not in Texas Superstar plant list, but this is one of my most favorite plants because when nothing, I have experimented in my front yard. I have 2 oak trees, and most of you may have oak trees, and nothing seems to grow under the oak trees. So ligularia, or the leopard plant, seems to do extremely well in part shade. It loves shade. And it also blesses us with this nice color, nice blooms in winter. In say December, November, December, and January, you see the ligularia in full bloom. And even when it is not in bloom, look at those leaves. They're huge, lush green, and very interesting shape. So this plant is a must grow if you have shade. And this again is not in Texas Superstar plants. I have planted this in my garden like maybe 7-8 years ago. It dies in every freeze, but this is the one plant that blooms in winter. So this is called Hong Kong Archetree. It grows very fast. It grows to 20 feet, 30 feet in one season. And if you have a yard where you can, display this in winter, it is full of this huge blooms. They also have a light fragrance, and bees love it. But it will die. If there is a freeze, it will die, and it is coming back every year so far. So this is one tree that you can have for winter color. And this is called the Southern Belle, the camellias. Camellias, again, are not Texas Superstar yet, but it is a great plant to grow under the oak trees. They love shade. The Camellia sasanka, it takes a little bit more sun than the Japonica, and they are evergreen. I have not seen them wilt or die in the last 7-8 years I had them. I moved here only 10 years back, so my window is a little shorter. But they provide a lot of interest in winter. Some camellias bloom in early fall, like in September, October. Some camellias bloom in late winter, like January, February, and they bloom until March, April. So these are great to have in your garden, but they are picky. So once you give them the right spot, they will thrive. Until that, you may want to experiment. But most of the time, if you have morning sun and definitely afternoon shade, because our afternoon sun is very, very strong. So provide that shade, and they will reward you with nice blooms in winter when nothing else is blooming. So now that we have done with the presentation, I have shown you for the 4 seasons what all you can do, and how you can plan your garden, and how you can use the websites to plan your garden. So most of these plants that I'm going to show that are in my garden, these are all in my garden. So you can get a glimpse of what you can have on a monthly basis. So these are pictures from my garden, and you can have flowers for the 12 months. So January, camellias. February, you have the narcissus, and March, daffodils, and the Mexican flame vine. This is a new kid on the block for Texas Superstars. It remains evergreen in most of the winters, but sometimes it dies and comes back. And it is a great plant to have on a fence if you want to cover the fence. And this dark orange is so attractive. So that's one of my favorite plants. And April, May, June. So April, Belinda's Dream. Again, when I say April, Belinda's Dream stays throughout the year. So don't mistake that's only for April, but it will start blooming in April. Excuse me. And Laura Bush Petunia in May, Salvia, Henry Duelberg and Augusta Duelberg Salvia. So I planted them together, the purple and white. These are all superstar plants on this slide. So these can bloom in each of these months. And in June, you will have John Fanick Phlox and Julia Child Rose and Moy Grande Hibiscus. So Moy Grande Hibiscus you may not find in the trade very easily. It is a huge hibiscus, about 10 inches, 12 inches across. And it is a great plant to have because it will definitely come back from the roots. And John Fanick Phlox is the only phlox that has a fragrance. And again, that also it may be a little difficult to find it, but I will give you the names of some nurseries where you can find some of these plants. So July, Blue Days. So again, all these are Texas superstar plants. Excuse me. So Blue Days is nice dark blue and tiny flowers, but they make a great impact. You can plant them in combination with other plants. Here I planted with a coleus in a container. And butterfly vine, this is also a new kid on the block. It was named as Texas Superstar 2 years back. And the butterfly vine is also very interesting because it has blooms in summer. And when it starts, when fall comes around, the flowers become into the seed pods, which look like butterflies. So it has two wings, and the seed pods look exactly like butterflies. So that's why it's called butterfly vine, and it's a great plant. Most of the times it stays green, evergreen, and it does come back. I have not had any problem with it. So in August, Amelia, hummingbird bush, we talked about it, and Gomphrena. So those two are. And September, so Mexican Petunia. This is also a Texas superstar plant. It comes in purple, white, and pink. Again, just like Turt's Cap, Mexican Petunia is also, if you have it in your garden, it is very difficult to get rid of it. But it is very pretty. It is pretty, it spreads. So if you have problem areas, these are the plants you should have because they will thrive. No matter what, even if you don't do anything, they will thrive. They look very pretty. And the trailing lantana in September. And October, Duranta. This is winter. And Duranta and fall zinnias. And November, fall mums, Plumbago. And December, Hong Kong orchid. And this is something, this is also a Texas superstar, Phalaenopsis orchid. I was pleasantly surprised that it made it to the list because it's quite easy, even for a novice, for a newbie, it is easy to grow as long as you don't overwater it. And orchids generally bloom when the temperature difference between the day and night is substantial. So when the nights are cooler, then they start putting on buds and bloom. So that's why they are more like winter bloomers. And most of the orchids we get in the market are from greenhouses, so they may not follow this routine. But if you're having orchids in your house, you will see more buds forming in winter because of the cooler night temperatures. So that is all I have to show you like how you can plan your garden between Earthkind selections and Texas superstars, and also some not so usual plants, and how you can have flowers for every month of the year. And I didn't even touch vegetables or fruits. We have some vegetables and fruits that are Texas superstars, and we can create more interest with those. I haven't touched them because this presentation is about flower color through the 4 seasons. So you have a lot of options, and These are some of the nurseries where I found the Texas superstar plants. Enchanted Gardens and Forest in Richmond, and Caldwell Nursery in Rosenberg, Buchanan's and Joshua's in the Heights, and also Lowe's. Lowe's actually carries a lot of superstar plants, and they generally have the A&M burgundy pots. So you can make out, and it has the superstar stamp on it. So you may start like seeing them in Lowe's. So when you see them, grab them. And these are the areas. And I hope you got some useful information from the presentation. And we do request you to do the survey, because if you tell us what you like, what you haven't liked as much, we can provide more useful information for you. We have a lot of speakers in our speakers bureau, and we can give you more information. So do the survey. There is a QR code. If you want, you can take a picture, you can do the camera and do the QR code and fill the form, a Google form. And please let us know what you like and what you would like to see, and how we can improve the presentations for you. And that's it. I'm going to stop share.
Thank you.
Sure. So if anybody has questions, or if Boone wants to talk.
I have a question about selecting an evergreen for very hot sun in a clay soil.
Okay, so Trialis will do very well, depending on shrub or vine. Vine is Mexican butterfly vine, will do very well. It is not at all fussy about the soil. And of course, Turk's cap will do very well also.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Suma, we had, there was a little discussion in the chat concerning plants that may be borderline for us as far as showing susceptibility to insect and disease pressure. Example is hollyhock. There's one that popped up, and while we love hollyhocks, I've rarely seen examples of them in Fort Bend County that looked happy. You want to expand upon regionality of certain plants and some limiting factors there?
Yeah, so that's the whole point of Texas superstar plants, because they are bred for this region, and they are bred to be disease resistant specific. And that is the reason that we will not go wrong if we do those first, and then you play with the other plants. But when you see a plant being affected by aphids or anything else, you may want to either remove the plant because it may affect the other plants, or treat it if you want to keep trying to grow that. One of the things that I would like to talk about roses also, we talked about roses quite a bit. Roses are also susceptible to rose rosette disease, and the unfortunate thing is, if it affects one rose, it may affect all the other roses in your garden. So keep an eye on that. And again, A&M website is the best place for you to keep on top of these things. So check that website to see what is happening with what plants, and you will get, there's a lot of information about like any diseases that are spreading in our Fort Bend area.
A great presentation. Thank you. I was wondering if I missed the first half an hour of the presentation, and is there any way I can, I see that it's being taped. Is there any way I can get the tape or access it later?
Yeah, you will get the recording. If you have registered for the class, you will get the recording. It will be sent to everyone who registered for the class along with the survey link. So.
Okay, thank you.
I've got another question soon if you have time. What would be your strategies on controlling aphids during outbreaks in your garden?
So it depends on whether you're going organic route or non-organic. So most of the times, neem, it depends also on the season, because you don't want to treat in the peak of summer. I tried neem oil spray and also horticultural oil, and they seem to work. But if you want to go chemical route, I think there are some options.
Yeah, I think aphids are pretty simple. A lot of times, Mother Nature will catch up to flare up areas with beneficial insects. So you'll look for lacewing crawlers and ladybug larvae that will move into those populations and feast upon them. And then move into just high jet spring a squirt of water with the water hose if you've got aphids piled up on certain branches of plants, just dislodging them onto the ground. Fire ants would love to grab hold of those and take them away. If there's any good use for a fire ant on this planet. But yeah, spinosad, neem. We were talking about insecticidal soap in the chat, and there's some pretty soft products that you can apply directly to aphids, and you can knock back their populations significantly as well.
So Boone, along that line, they asked, are salvias susceptible to spider mites?
Yeah, I was just reading that. Most plants can be susceptible to spider mites, and some species of salvias are as well, particularly at certain times of the year. So if your sages or salvias are stressed during the heat of summer, then that is usually when the plants give off stress signals, and you see those populations flare up. So really the best remedy for that is to avoid it. Keep those plants happy in the summertime, water them appropriately, mulching around the plants, keep them from getting stressed, and you'll really eliminate some of those problems. I won't go into like the whole doctrine of irrigation, but I think a lot of people are over irrigating during the summer months, and trying to do a good thing for our plants, but too much water it tends to be our number one cause of insect and disease pressure during the warm season. So might be a time for you to go inspect your irrigation system at the house and make adjustments. Not a plug or anything, but maybe Nancy could put the dates for our irrigation course in the chat dialogue there. We'll be going into a deep dive on irrigation practices. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and you'll learn some cool stuff.
Yeah, I would like to also add one more thing to what Boone said, is like taking precautions before it gets into the disease stage. When we plant very close together, there's no air circulation that also may be susceptible to create these diseases.
That's right. Yeah, just thinking about what a plant needs, good appropriate sunlight, good airflow between the plants. As gardeners, we feast for more plants. It's like, we see something that's cool and new and we have to have it, but maybe we don't have room for it in the garden. So you start packing plants in, and they're crammed in there together.
Yeah.
You're gonna get insect problems.
Yeah.
For sure.
Does anyone have any other questions?
One more question. Do we have like dark color leaf boxwoods in Texas?
I have no idea.
Okay. Thank you.
There are some of the Japanese boxwood that varieties that will have a seasonal color to the foliage, particularly as they're putting on new growth. So I think the vague answer is yes. As far as varieties, if you contacted the hotline, I'm sure some of our research folks could do a deep dive into that and give you a couple names of some selections.
Okay, thank you.